So I have not heard anything actually touch bottom. It just becomes more and more mysterious. I have no way of understanding it.
But I will say that I can tell you some pretty scary things.
If that is it, then you could be in danger now. Now, I got a fax tonight that you've got to hear. Dear Art, I live in rural eastern Washington near Manastash Ridge. On our property, there is a hole. The hole is 9 feet 9 inches in diameter. There is a stone retaining wall around it, and we've put a steel door on top to keep anybody from falling into it. Like the previous owners and the owners before them, we have been throwing our trash into the hole. The thing is that I noticed that the hole never filled up. I'm wondering if this is the deepest hole on Earth.
On the 21st of February 1997, this fax was sent to popular talk radio personality Art Bell. At the time, Art hosted the nationally syndicated Coast to Coast, a late-night staple that fielded calls regarding anything and everything fringe. Few callers, however, drew as loyal a following as 64-year-old Mel Waters. Over the course of 5 years, millions eagerly tuned in to hear his progressively outlandish saga of the Endless Hole. Then, without warning, he disappeared. Join us.
Now to eastern Washington. I guess this is eastern Washington. Mel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. When did you discover this hole?
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now,
and so there's been a thing of throwing stuff down this hole for a long time.
It's been going on. You know, I mean, it's just been going on for a long time. Well, I got this thinking one day: how come this hole is not filling up? It must be an awfully deep hole.
Succumbing to curiosity, the ex-angler rigged a long spool of fishing line to the hole's centre and fed it inside. Concerned if he let the line any further it would break, he abandoned it at roughly 15 miles deep. Given this depth, Mel faxed Art for advice. Did he or his audience know if a bottomless hole was referenced in any Native American legends? Art wasn't sure, but suggested the media might be able to help him. Mel though rejected talk of publicity, pivoting the conversation back to his original question. Simply put, did he own the world's deepest hole? In a surprisingly serious response, a caller answered that if Mel's measurements were accurate, his hole was double the depth of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth. Among those listening to this call was geologist Jack Powell. In his own words, a hole that deep was naturally impossible, but what if it was supernatural? During his 4 years living at the property, Mel observed that neither wildlife nor pets would venture within 100 feet of the hole. When he asked the locals if they'd noticed any comparable phenomena, several of them related rumours of a resurrected dog.
Had anything ever come out of that hole, Mel?
Yeah, this could be an apocryphal story, but one guy threw his old hunting dog down into the hole, I guess, as a form of burial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, then people throw everything in there. There's dead cows going down the hole. There's, sheep. And the story that I heard was that the hunter was out there hunting one day, and he saw his old departed dog. It looked exactly the same. In fact, it was wearing the same collar and the same tags on it. So he was the story is, they were like absolutely believed the dog came back somehow. Now, here's the thing here. I said, well, did you call the dog back to you? He said it looked like it was hunting with somebody else.
Oh, man. Does anybody have any theories about what properties would be in the hole to resurrect a canine?
I'd like to think that this is something like really benign, like, cows have gone down there. I mean, I haven't heard any cows coming back, or at least that you would know.
All right, and you would swear on all that is sacred to you that what you have told us is the absolute, unadulterated truth.
This is my hole, and this is the truth about it.
God, it's an amazing story, Mel. Well, look, we're out of time. Mel, you get the honors from near the hole in Washington State. Tell them.
From the hole, it is good night to everyone from coast to coast.
For Mel, this farewell marked the end of the story. The reality was that it was only the beginning. The evening after the broadcast, Mel set off for the hole to re-examine the fishing line. En route to his property, he observed a cluster of helicopters looming over it. Mel quickly realised what was happening. In less than 24 hours, the property had been completely overtaken by the military. Mobile trailers had been moved on site, men in hazmat suits patrolled the area, and a wall of armed soldiers blocked the entrance. From beyond the soldiers walked over a man dressed in civilian clothes. The man explained that the property had been the scene of a plane crash. When Mel questioned the absence of smoke, the man threatened that it would be easy to portray his herbal remedies as narcotics should he disturb their investigation. Shaken by this warning, Mel asked if he was free to leave. The man responded that he was. After all, he mocked, no one would believe his story anyway. He was right. Someone who didn't believe Mel was Ken Cooper, spokesman for Washington's Yakima Training Center. In an interview with the Tri-City Herald, Cooper wholeheartedly denied the allegations of a cover-up. Convinced otherwise, Mel turned to his neighbors for information.
I thought I'd go out there and do some more research amongst my neighbors who, may have...
That makes sense. You can't go on the property, you might as well talk to the neighbors. Yeah, sure.
And so, you go out and buy them a cup of coffee and find out a few things here. Anyway, I had talked to one gentleman who's really quite elderly and has lived in the area for a long time, but he said originally, and this is going way back, so this must go back about 40, 50, maybe longer, that there was a series of, around the hole, there was a series of stone columns. I said, stone columns? And
stone columns?
Yeah. Well, I had my power book with me, and I pulled up a picture of Stonehenge.
Yeah.
He says, that's exactly what the thing looked like.
You're kidding.
He said that they had these, pillars lined up, just like that.
Oh, that's really odd. Listen, there are some people with questions. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Today, I didn't have a chance to mention this. After finding out, the story about the black beam.
What do you mean black beam?
From time to time, black beam, this is a contradiction, but a black beam of light comes from the hole. It lasts for a very short time, but it just goes directly up into the sky.
And when you look at it, it looks like a black beam. In other words, as opposed to a lighted sky.
If you had a flashlight and it was capable of throwing off a black, not a black light like we used to have back in the 60s, with all that stuff, but black, solid black.
Yeah, gotcha.
There's no way to describe it. There's no... I am one of the few people that I've had other people tell me about it. I have never personally witnessed the black beam.
Following these conversations, Mel drove up to his apartment in Ellensburg. That night, he received a message from his realtor. Some anonymous party was interested in leasing his property. In exchange, they offered to pay him $250,000 a month to live in Australia. Faced with the possibility of either Perth or prison, Mel accepted the deal. For the next 2.5 years, the retiree pursued his passions of alternative medicine. In the meantime, Mel upheld his correspondence with art over email. Ultimately, arrangements were made for Mel to guest on the show while he was over in Washington helping his nephew. In the lead up to the broadcast, Mel's appearance was extensively promoted by art. Millions now knew that he had returned, including the same faceless entity that owned his property. On the eve of his scheduled appearance, Mel's transit bus was forced to stop at a park and ride following an altercation between passengers. At this point, a group of apparent transit workers boarded the bus. Since Mel had limited time to answer their questions, they offered to drive him to his destination. This was the last thing he remembered.
That's the last thing I remember.
The last thing you remember? What do you mean?
Was it about 12 days later? I found myself in San Francisco in a pretty rough part of town, in an alley. These bums were basically trying to wake me up.
Holy mackerel!
And when I woke up there, you know, I had nothing on me. I had no identification. I had no wallet. I had no keys. I had the clothes I had when I was, you know, moving. They were still as grubby and filthy as...
Yeah.
I noticed there was pain in my arm. I rolled up my sleeve. It looked like an IV was taped to my skin.
So, obviously, somebody kept you out for 12 days for some reason.
All of my back teeth have been removed.
What?
I have no back teeth.
You have no back teeth?
None.
You don't mean like...
no molars, no wisdom teeth.
You're not talking about wisdom teeth. You're talking about...
None.
Why would they take your teeth out?
I have no idea, Art. I mean, in fact, at the time there, I was still bleeding from the back of the mouth.
Boy, you were screwing with somebody you shouldn't have been screwing with.
The next thing I got in touch with my nephew. I said, look, I'm down here. He gets me a Greyhound ticket to pick up at the bus station over there. I get on the bus. And
you were broke?
I had nothing.
Not only had Mel's teeth been seized, but so had all his money. Left with nothing to lose, he was more determined to get to the bottom of the hole than ever before. The problem was that a fragment of Art's audience wasn't convinced it even existed. Yet the host countered that a television crew had recently discovered a military presence near the estimated location of Mel's property. Furthermore, Art had been inundated with calls from Ellensburg residents who'd heard tales of a bottomless hole for decades. Nevertheless, this hearsay would mean little if it wasn't for the revelation that the property had been expunged from TerraServer, the forerunner to Google Earth. Any credibility provided by this discovery was undermined, however, when he announced the existence of a second hole. In early September 2001, Mel was emailed by a Native American community in northern Nevada. From his work with herbal medicine, he shared a positive working relationship with various tribes nationwide. While the natives implied that they wished to talk business, their true motivation was to introduce him to the Basque. The Basque are a southwestern European people who settled in Nevada in the mid-1800s. As per an elder of the community, the hole was already there when they arrived. Like its Washington counterpart, the Nevada hole was 9 feet in diameter and scared off animals. On the other hand, this one was surrounded by metal rather than stone. Mel was informed that the metal produced heat, but wasn't itself hot. Upon learning this, Mel was curious as to what the temperature was like inside the hole. In order to test this, they lowered one bucket of ice approximately 1,500 feet down the hole, with another left topside. Once the surface ice had partially melted, they hoisted the whole ice back up. But whereas the ice cubes left on the surface were floating around a bucket of water, the cubes sent into the hole were solid. Assuming there was some chemical reaction at play, Mel continued to test the cube's properties by setting the bucket over a campfire. Only the ice didn't melt. Instead, it ignited. Despite witnessing this, one of the Basques volunteered to be dropped into the hole. Thankfully, the others were able to dissuade him, yet they agreed that they required a live subject. Far away from civilization, the sole specimen available was sheep. After confining the terrified animal in a crate, they winched it down to the same point as the ice. 30 minutes on, they raised it back up to the surface.
But we open up the crate and the sheep is dead. It looks like a sheep. But we take it out of the box and one of the Basques lays it on the table that we have over there, and he is going to dissect the sheep. Now, on the outside, the sheep looked just fine. But he started cutting into the sheep, and it looked like the sheep had been cooked.
Right.
You know, so he gets it so he can look inside and see the internal organs like he's going to eviscerate the sheep.
Right.
Except they're not what we expected.
What do you mean?
It looks like there was gel, something that looked like this huge tumor, and almost taking up the entire length of the body cavity. Anyway, so we got this gel, and the guy's good with a knife here, and he kind of is able to get the tumor out of this thing here. And we could see that the tumor had some movement to it.
What?
Yes, it had movement to it, and I'm going to describe it like a heart beating.
Oh my God, Mel.
So we get to the point where we got this tumor out there, and he's working on trying to cut it open. It's like really a tough thing to cut into, but he was finally able to get into it. And there's this thing that it's alive inside. It looks like a baby seal, but the eyes are so odd. And I don't know. I don't want people to freak out, but it had what looked to me like human eyes. And the thing was alive, but it was connected to the tumor, like with this umbilical cord. And I'm calling it a seal, okay, but I have no idea what the heck this thing is, okay? I'm calling it a seal. This thing separated from the tumor without our assistance, because we thought, well, maybe we'll cut this thing free.
Right there on the table.
It right there, and it moved about a little on the table. And it looked like it was going to fall off.
Right.
So I go up to it at this point, because I'm just like out of my head with I don't know what. And I got this compelling feeling to pick it up and place it on the ground. And I did that. And so some amount of time elapsed, and the little seal there starts to waddle again towards the hole, and I get this feeling that it wants to go up on the ledge, on the collar.
Right.
So I pick it up in my hands and I set it right there on there. At this point, we were close to it, so we watched him go all the way down as far as we could see, and we didn't have high-powered lights or anything, so no sound, nothing like that. It
into the hole, and that was it.
Into the hole.
For the majority of listeners, this claim was an escalation too far. Theories floated that the original Mel had been replaced by an imposter, while others postulated that he was an actor hired by art. Whatever the truth, the story of Mel's hole only got deeper. Mel claimed that before his trip to Nevada, he'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer, but that after he returned home, he was found to be clear. It was his belief that the encounter with the unidentified creature had cured him. Drastically transformed by the encounter, he promptly organised a return to the hole. Convinced that he was being followed, however, he reluctantly remained in hiding. Even with these precautions, the Basque informed him that the military had located the hole regardless. Yet for reasons unknown, they only monitored the region from the air. That was until Mel called them. You see, in the winter of 2001, he had been phoned by one of the Basque. The Basque revealed that subsequent to Mel's visit, he had taken the bucket of ice to fill his wood stove. Almost instantly, he realised that the ice was absorbing the moisture out of the air. 3 weeks later, the entire cabin had disintegrated into dust, and the stove had sank 5 feet through the floorboards. Concerned it was creating a new hole, Mel begrudgingly disclosed the cabin's location to one of his former contacts in Australia. At the same time, he warned the Basque about the officials' impending arrival. From a vantage point in the hilltops, the Basque watched as a team of researchers desperately struggled to remove the stove. He couldn't identify whether they were scientists or military, but observed that they were supported by heavy-duty construction equipment. Eventually, the team secured the stove to multiple large cranes and hauled it out. While it sounds admittedly absurd, the Basque claimed this was of great concern to the creature.
But the Basque that are there have told me that they receive visits from the seal-like creature again and again, and they've had many experiences. And what they did, and I don't know how they decided to do this, but the seal speaks to them through the radio on the boombox.
The implication would be this creature is capable of radiating some sort of modulated radio frequency, and that's how it would happen.
Okay, now the Basque were warned about the ice that we set down.
What kind of warning?
This stuff is too dangerous to fool around with. You don't have any way.
It's not supposed to be up here.
Of understanding how this works, even though it is so tempting that all of a sudden in a bucket of ice, I've got what seems to be an inexhaustible source of power. Apparently, so I think that stuff that was down there really is truly dangerous if not contained properly. Is my feeling on that there, and then that's the warnings that they were giving, and so I don't know. But anyway, they have been communicating with them, and one of them was actually smart enough to press the record button on the boombox.
Good move.
Yeah. He did, but this is what happened when he played it back.
Yes.
It sounded like that intermodulation that you get between, like, it's a series of chirps and bloops and bleeps and things like that.
Oh, yes.
That's what was recorded. And again, I wasn't there, okay? But I don't think these guys, the Basque, are pulling my leg. They're not that kind of guy. They might be crazy enough to want to go into a hole.
Do you have that recording?
I don't have it handy, but
you have it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Despite these promises of hard evidence, Mel Waters was never heard from again. In his absence, Seattle Paranormal Society undertook multiple expeditions to find the original hole. Although unsuccessful, they did catalogue numerous third-party reports of a bottomless hole in the Manastash Ridge. But while they gathered evidence of the hole's existence, they never gathered any evidence of Mel's existence. Today, the consensus is that the name was a pseudonym. Under a forum thread discussing Mel's identity, a Miss Mel's Wells asserted that they used the pseudonym because they were a known fraudster and moonshiner. Still, without corroboration to verify this, it remains just a rumour. The same applies to a poster who claimed to be Mel himself. In response to an article about the case, he wrote that he'd returned to Australia after receiving a sizable settlement from the Bureau of Land Management. As part of his agreement with the US government, he'd been prohibited from speaking to the media, but maintained that everything he had told out about the second hole was true. His post ended with the admission that it was better for him to remain silent rather than risk his life. Even so, he was hopeful that the public would hear from him once more in the future. Since this eagerly awaited post never materialised, the conjecture is that Mel passed on. In his first call, he revealed that his will stipulated his remains be disposed of into the hole. His hope was that if it could resurrect a dog, maybe it could resurrect a human as well. So was the whole story true? Or are there too many holes in it? The legend lives on.
This has been just an extraordinary ride for me, okay? It's been like nothing I could have ever imagined in anyone's life. To go where I've been, to be where I was, to go up, to go down, to be in the presence of such an amazing thing. And my only goal is to leave a permanent record of what happened.